In a quiet small town in Blairsville, Pennsylvania, one of the most chilling murders in recent local memory unfolded. The brutal killing of a respected dentist, Dr. John Yelenick. Dr. John Yelenick wasn't just another doctor. He was a well-liked pediatric dentist, known for his gentle care and ability to make children smile, a stark contrast to how his life would end. Born and raised in Pennsylvania, he built a fulfilling career and later a life many would describe as enviable. But behind the calm veneer of community respect and professional success, something in his personal life was unraveling. In the weeks leading up to his death, something about John Yelenick changed. Friends and colleagues noticed that he seemed distracted, tense in a way they had never seen before. But what truly set this case apart wouldn't come from police reports or forensic evidence. It would come from something John said while he was still alive. John reportedly began having disturbing dreams, vivid, recurring nightmares where he was attacked inside his own home. These weren't passing thoughts or vague fears. They were specific, violent, personal. According to those close to him, John became convinced that he would not survive long enough to see the end of his divorce. The fear grew so intense that he did something almost unheard of. He went to his attorney and asked him to prepare for his death. John requested that money be set aside, not for legal fees or property disputes, but to investigate his own murder if it happened. He believed someone close to the situation would kill him, and he wanted answers waiting if he was no longer alive to seek them himself. This wasn't paranoia spoken in passing. It was a man documenting his fear, taking steps as if he knew time was running out. And the most chilling part? John made these arrangements just days before he was found dead, brutally murdered in the exact place he had feared, his own home. When investigators later learned about these dreams, they could no longer ignore the possibility that John hadn't just been afraid. He may have been warning the world. In the early 2000s, John married Michelle Yelenick. Their relationship was far from idyllic. Years of marital strain, allegations, and emotional conflict had turned their marriage toxic. So toxic that when John filed for divorce in 2006, he was only one day away from finalizing it. John had every reason to hope the divorce would free him, but he also had a chilling sense that something terrible might happen if the process played out. Long before his life was taken, John confided in his attorney that he believed he would be killed. In preparation for what he feared was inevitable, he asked his attorney to set aside money to investigate his own murder if it happened. That premonition, unsettling, almost haunting, would tragically become reality. Late on April 13th, 2006, one day before John was scheduled to sign his final divorce papers, something unimaginable happened. At his Blairsville home, neighbors would later report hearing terrifying sounds, screams that would echo through the quiet streets in the early morning hours. The next morning, a 9-year-old neighbor named Zachary went to knock on John's door, looking for his friend, or perhaps just checking in. Instead, he stumbled upon a nightmare.
A little boy from next door, 9-year-old Zachary Use, was the first to discover the awful thing that happened to the 39-year-old dentist.
I know this is really hard. Why did you go over to John's house that day?
That day I was just looking for somebody to hang out with.
Zach was hoping to see John's son. They'd been such good friends. Instead, Zach saw something no child should ever have to see.
So I'm walking up to his porch, and I noticed the broken glass on the steps. He had red carpet, so I didn't notice the blood at first. But I noticed that his panel side window on the left was broken, and there was blood kind of smeared a little bit going down the front.
He was scared, but he kept going.
I put my hand through the window, I unlocked the door, went inside, and I saw John laying right there.
How bad was it?
He had a slit on his throat. His clothing was drenched in blood.
You see this horrific scene, and do you run home?
Yeah, I run to my porch, and I was just like, Craig.
In minutes, the family was on the phone with 911.
He noticed broken glass on the porch and a pool of blood inside. The sight was so gruesome that at first he didn't even register what he was seeing, only sensing something was very wrong. Terrified, he ran home and alerted his family, who then called 911. Police responding to the scene found John's body inside, face down, his throat brutally cut, and his head pressed through a window near the front door. The house had clearly been the site of a violent confrontation. On a nearby coffee table lay something that struck investigators as hauntingly symbolic: John's unsigned divorce papers, splattered with his own blood. This wasn't a quiet death. This was a killing of rage. Investigators found signs of a struggle, blood trails, bloody footprints leading out through a back door, and evidence that John had fought desperately to defend himself. But who could have done this? No forced entry, no immediate suspects, until detectives began piecing together what happened in the hours before the murder. The investigation took a chilling turn when it became clear the perpetrator wasn't a stranger dropped out of the dark, but someone intimately connected to John's personal life. The prime suspect, Pennsylvania State Police Trooper Kevin Foley. Foley wasn't just any trooper. He was living with John's estranged wife, Michelle Yelenis, at the time of the murder. The lived-in relationship, combined with a bitter divorce just days away from finalization, put him at the center of a shocking speculation. The prosecutor painted a stark motive: jealousy, anger, financial gain, and a life insurance policy on John's life that listed Michelle, and only she, as the beneficiary. Upon the divorce, he stood to lose $12,500 a month in spousal support, and that life insurance would be voided if John survived. Foley's colleagues testified that he often spoke about John with intense hostility. One trooper said Foley would say things like, "I wish John Yelenik was dead." Such comments, once dismissed as talk, began to take on grim significance. But mere words aren't evidence. And the defense argued just that during the trial. Trying to link Foley to the crime wasn't straightforward. There was no murder weapon recovered, and fingerprints didn't yield immediate results. But investigators seized upon two critical pieces of evidence: DNA under John's fingernails and bloody footprints at the scene. The state crime lab analysed the DNA found beneath John's nails, likely left during a desperate attempt to fight off his attacker. That genetic material didn't belong to John himself. Experts estimated the chances that the DNA came from anyone other than Kevin Foley was extremely small. At first, around 1 in 13,000, and later, with advanced computer interpretation, raised to hundreds of millions to 1. Those odds would play a major role when this evidence reached the courtroom. In March 2009, almost 3 years after the murder, Foley stood trial for first-degree murder. Prosecutors presented the bloody footprints at the crime scene matching limited edition shoes connected to Foley, the DNA evidence from under John's fingernails, testimony about Foley's hostile remarks toward the victim, and the tumultuous divorce battle that set the stage for a violent confrontation. The defense tried to argue that the evidence, especially the DNA, wasn't conclusive and that there were other people who might have had motives. But as the trial wore on, the cumulative weight of the evidence convinced the jury. After 6 hours of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Kevin Foley was found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Dr. John Yelenik. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice for a killing that had shaken a tight-knit community. Foley has since attempted appeals, including arguing that the trial was flawed. But the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejected those appeals, affirming the conviction. To this day, the case remains a stark reminder that violent murder can hide behind normalcy. A killer could be someone entrusted with authority, respect, and a badge. If you made it to the end of the video, let me hear your thoughts in the comments section below. And as always, Thanks for watching.